Dr. Lisa Bennett stared at the numbers floating on her holographic display. Her hand shook as she checked the results for the 5th time. The lab was quiet except for the soft hum of quantum computers and the beating of her heart. "This can't be right," she whispered, but the data didn't lie. Her team had done it. They had found a way to control time itself. She pressed the comm button on her desk. "Get me Captain Mills. He needs to see this now." 30 minutes later, Captain Peter Mills of the U.S. Valiant walked into the lab, his uniform crisp despite the late hour. He had been about to go to bed when the urgent call came through. "This better be good, Lisa. We're supposed to start our deep space patrol tomorrow," he said, but his stern expression softened when he saw her excitement. "Peter, we did it." She waved him over to her workstation. "Look at these readings. We can create a bubble of altered time around an object. We can slow it down, speed it up, even freeze it completely." The captain leaned in, his eyes widening as he understood what he was seeing. "You're telling me you can control time? In a limited space, yes, and we can maintain it using less power than our standard shields." She pulled up another display showing a small metal sphere floating in a containment field. "Watch this." Lisa typed a command, and a slight shimmer appeared around the sphere. She picked up a pen and tossed it at the object. The pen slowed to a crawl as it entered the field, taking several seconds to move just a few inches. "My God," Peter whispered. "Does High Command know about this?" "You're the first person outside the lab I told. We need to." An alarm cut through their conversation. Red lights flashed as the base's AI announced, "Unknown vessels detected entering the solar system. Multiple signatures, size and configuration match no known human ships." Peter's comm unit buzzed. "Captain Mills to the bridge immediately. First contact scenario in progress." He looked at Lisa. "Bring your data. If these visitors aren't friendly, we might need your discovery sooner than we thought." The bridge of the U.S. Valiant hummed with tension as the massive alien ships appeared on their screens. There were 5 of them, each larger than anything humanity had ever built, their hulls covered in swirling patterns that seemed to move in impossible ways. "Report," Peter ordered as he stepped onto the bridge, Lisa right behind him. Susan Clark, their diplomatic officer, looked up from her station. 7 minutes ago, these ships appeared at the edge of our system. They're broadcasting some kind of signal, but it's like nothing we've ever seen. Wait, we're getting it now. They're translating into all Earth languages simultaneously." A deep, resonant voice filled the bridge. "Attention, primitive species. This is High Counselor Vexthar of the Galactic Council. Your activities have been monitored, and you are now deemed ready for contact. Prepare to receive our representatives." Peter straightened his uniform. "Miss Clark, you're with me. Dr. Bennett, stay close. Something tells me we might need your expertise." He turned to his first officer. "Commander, keep the ship ready. If anything feels wrong, get us out of here." The alien ship's transport beam was nothing like human technology. It didn't just move matter. It seemed to fold space itself. One moment they were on the Valiant. The next, they stood in a vast chamber that stretched farther than seemed possible. Creatures that could only be described as living crystal formations floated before them. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time, their bodies shifting through colors that human eyes had never seen before. "Welcome, humans," the lead crystal being said, its voice resonating in their minds rather than their ears. "I am High Counselor Vexthar of the Zorthani, senior race of the Galactic Council." Susan stepped forward, her diplomatic training kicking in. "We are honored to meet you, High Counselor. I am Diplomatic Officer Susan Clark of Earth's United Space Command." "Yes," Vexthar's tone carried something like amusement. "We have watched your species crawl out of its cradle. You show potential, despite your primitive state. The Council has decided to offer you membership, under our guidance, of course." Peter noticed the slight. "With respect, High Counselor, humanity has achieved faster than light travel and colonized multiple star systems. We may be young, but we're hardly primitive." A sound like crystal chimes filled the air. Zorthani laughter. Captain Mills, your fastest ships would seem slow to our ancient race. Your weapons are toys, your shields paper thin. But do not be discouraged. Under our leadership, you may advance to true civilization in a few thousand years. Lisa stepped forward, ignoring Peter's warning glance. High Counselor, I am Dr. Lisa Bennett, lead scientist of Earth's Temporal Physics Division. Perhaps we could share some of our recent discoveries. A scientific exchange would benefit both our peoples. The crystalline beings shifted, their colors darkening. Temporal physics. Vexthar's tone sharpened. Impossible. Your species is far too young to grasp such concepts. Know your place, human. The Council decides when lesser races are ready for advanced knowledge. Before anyone could respond, alarms blared through the chamber. A younger Zorthani rushed in, its crystals pulsing with urgent patterns. High Counselor, the humans, their ships are using some kind of temporal field. Our scans just detected it. Vexthar's form grew dark, almost black. Explain this immediately, he demanded, looming over the human delegation. Peter moved in front of his people. That information is classified under Earth military protocols. If you wish to discuss technology sharing, we can arrange proper diplomatic channels. You dare. Vexthar's voice boomed in their heads, painful now. Lesser races do not keep secrets from the Council. You will submit to immediate inspection of all your technology, or face the consequences. Susan tried to salvage the situation. High Counselor, surely we can discuss this calmly. Earth would be happy to. Enough. A wave of crystal appendages and screens appeared around them, showing massive Zorthani warships emerging from what looked like tears in space itself. You have 1 Earth day to submit to our authority and surrender all temporal research, or we will demonstrate why the Zorthani have ruled the galaxy for 1,000,000 years. The transport beam activated again, depositing them back on the Valiant's bridge. As soon as they materialized, Peter sprang into action. Battle stations, get us back to Earth now. We need to warn the fleet. Lisa grabbed his arm. Peter, wait. During the meeting, I had my quantum pad scanning their ship. The Zorthani. They're not as advanced as they claim. They don't understand temporal mechanics at all. They're using brute force to push through space-time. Their technology is powerful, but it's crude compared to what we've developed. Can your temporal fields protect us against their weapons? She nodded slowly. If we can install the generators quickly enough, yes. And they won't see it coming. They're so convinced we're primitive, they don't believe we could have mastered something they never understood. Peter turned to Susan. Send a message to Earth. Tell them everything, and get me Admiral Rogers. We've got less than 24 hours to prepare for war with a race that's ruled the galaxy for 1,000,000 years. He paused, then allowed himself a small smile. Good thing we humans are quick learners. As the Valiant raced back to Earth, the Zorthani ships hung in space like crystalline swords of Damocles. But they didn't notice the slight temporal distortions already spreading through Earth's defense grid, as humanity prepared to show the galaxy that age and power weren't everything. Sometimes, the young ones could teach the old gods new tricks. Commander Alan Wright stood at the main window of Neptune Station, watching the stars. His reflection showed a man with tired eyes and messy brown hair. The last 12 hours had been the busiest of his life. Earth's entire defense fleet was preparing for what might be their first interstellar war. Commander, a voice called from behind him. The engineering team is ready. He turned to see Chief Engineer Mary Rodriguez, her tool belt loaded with devices that hadn't existed a day ago. Dark circles under her eyes showed she hadn't slept, but her voice was steady. How many ships have we fitted with the temporal shields? Alan asked. 17 so far. Dr. Bennett's team sent us improved designs an hour ago. These new versions use half the power of the prototypes. Mary pulled up a holographic display from her wrist computer. We can finish the rest of the fleet in about 8 hours. Alan nodded. Good. The Zorthani gave us 24 hours, but I don't trust them to keep their word. His comm unit buzzed. Commander, you need to see this. Dr. Kevin Thompson's voice came through. I'm in the data lab. It's about the Zorthani. The data lab was a maze of screens and holographic displays. Kevin sat in the middle of it all, his usual neat appearance replaced by rumpled clothes and wild hair. Empty coffee cups littered his desk. Look at this, he said as Alan and Mary walked in. He waved his hand, and the air filled with streams of data. I've been analyzing the scans we took of their ships. Their technology isn't what we thought. What do you mean? Ellen asked. It's like they're stuck. Kevin highlighted several sections of data. Their ships are huge and powerful, yes, but the designs haven't changed in thousands of years. They're not innovating. They're just building bigger versions of the same things. Mary stepped closer to one of the displays. These energy readings, they're incredibly wasteful. They're using massive amounts of power to do things we can do much more efficiently. Exactly, Kevin said. And look at this. He pulled up another screen showing hundreds of alien species. These are all the races in the Galactic Council. Every single one of them stopped making major technological advances after joining. It's like their progress just froze. Alan's eyes narrowed. The Zorthani aren't protecting younger races. They're holding them back. A new voice joined them. That's exactly what they're doing. They turned to see a strange figure in the doorway. It was tall and slender, with silvery skin and large dark eyes. An Exeri, one of the council races they'd learned about in the first contact briefing. Ambassador Corell, Alan said, his hand moving to his weapon. How did you get in here? The Nexeri held up its hands in a peaceful gesture. Your security let me in. I came to warn you. And to ask for help. Its voice was musical, with a slight electronic echo. I am part of a secret group within the council. We've been watching Earth for some time, hoping you might be different. Mary stepped forward. Different how? Your people think in ways the Zorthani can't understand. You solve problems differently. Look at your temporal technology. You approached it with imagination, with creativity. The Zorthani have been trying to crack temporal mechanics for millennia, but they only think in terms of power and force. Kevin pulled up more data. Is that why they're threatening us? Because we succeeded where they failed. Krell made a soft trilling sound. A laugh, maybe. They're terrified. Your discovery proves what some of us have suspected. The Zorthani aren't the most advanced race in the galaxy. They're just the oldest. They'd been suppressing other races' development to maintain their power. Alan studied the alien carefully. Why are you telling us this? Because in 16 hours, they're going to attack Earth. Not in 24 hours as they claimed. They never keep their word to lesser races. And they won't stop with your temporal technology. They'll strip your world of all advanced knowledge, reduce you to a primitive state like they did to my people centuries ago. The humans shared alarmed looks. Mary spoke first. We need to warn the fleet. Wait, Krell said. There's more. Other races are watching. If you can stand against the Zorthani, if you can prove they're not invincible, many would stand with you. Alan's comm unit buzzed again. This time it was Captain Mills. Commander, get to the bridge. Now, the Zorthani are moving. On Neptune Station's command deck, the situation was tense. The massive alien ships had changed position, spreading out in an attack formation. Status of the temporal shields. Alan asked as he entered. All critical ships are equipped, Mary reported. We're working on the rest. Captain Mills appeared on the main screen, his face grim. The Valiant is heading back to your position. Dr. Bennett says the temporal field generators are ready for full deployment. But we have another problem. The screen split to show Susan Clark. The Zorthani are broadcasting to every world in the Council. They're painting us as dangerous upstarts who need to be put in our place. They're trying to make sure no one helps us. They're also lying about their deadline. Alan said, and quickly explained about Carell's warning. Peter's expression hardened. Typical. Well, if they want to start early, let's give them a surprise. He looked off screen. Lisa, are you sure about this? Dr. Bennett's voice came through. The calculations are solid. Their ships are powerful, but their temporal shielding is practically non-existent. They don't even realize they need it. Good. Peter turned back to the main camera. Commander Wright, deploy the fleet in defense pattern Delta, but keep our temporal tech powered down for now. Let them think we're just scrambling in panic. Ellen smiled. It wasn't a friendly expression. Understanding, Captain. We'll play dumb right up until we show them exactly how primitive we aren't. The next few hours were a blur of activity. Ships moved into position. Engineers worked frantically to install the last temporal shields. And through it all, the crystalline ships of the Zorthani drew closer, their formations precise and arrogant. Carell watched from a corner of the command deck, its large eyes reflecting the light of the displays. They're following their standard attack pattern. They've used it for thousands of years. Why change what's always worked? Because that's how you become predictable, Alan said. Mary, are the automated defense platforms ready? All set. They're rigged to create a temporal cascade effect when activated. The Zorthani won't know what hit them. Suddenly, alarms blared. The Zorthani ships had opened fire, 8 hours before their stated deadline. Beams of incredible power lanced out toward Earth's defenders. But humanity was ready. Temporal shields up. Alan ordered. All ships, execute Operation Looking Glass. The space around Earth's fleet shimmed slightly. The massive energy beams from the Zorthani ships seemed to hit something invisible, then slowed to a crawl. In the time-altered fields, the deadly attacks moved so slowly they could be easily avoided. Send the signal to Earth, Alan commanded. Tell them to show these ancient bullies what humanity can do. As Neptune Station's temporal field expanded, he thought about what Carell had said about human creativity. The Zorthani had ruled through power and fear for 1,000,000 years, but they were about to learn that sometimes the youngest child in the room could be the smartest. The battle for humanity's future was about to begin, and Earth had more than a few surprises ready for their overconfident opponents. Lieutenant Grace Mitchell watched her tactical display as the massive Zorthani ships approached Neptune Station. Their crystal ships glowed with building energy, preparing to fire again. But this time, Earth's forces were ready. All defense platforms online, she reported. Temporal fields are stable and synchronized. The Zorthani's second attack came in a blinding wave of energy. But instead of destroying the human fleet, their beams hit the temporal fields and slowed to a crawl. It looked like streams of bright syrup moving through space. Now that's a pretty sight, Grace said with a small smile. She pressed her command console. All ships, execute defensive pattern 3. Show them what we can do. Earth's ships moved with perfect coordination. Where the Zorthani were rigid and unchanging, the human fleet flowed like water, using the temporal fields to slide between the slowed enemy attacks. On the U.S. Valiant's bridge, Captain Peter Mills watched the battle unfold. Dr. Bennett, how are their ships reacting to the temporal effects? Lisa checked her readings. Just as we hoped. They have no protection against temporal manipulation. Their shields are strong, but they only work against normal space weapons. Perfect. Peter turned to his tactical officer. Launch temporal mines. Let's show them some real Earth hospitality. Small devices shot out from the human ships. They looked harmless, just metal spheres floating in space. The Zorthani ignored them, focusing their attacks on the larger ships. That was their first big mistake. The mines activated all at once. Each created a bubble of altered time. Some bubbles made time move super fast, aging the crystal ship's outer layers by years in seconds. Other bubbles made time move backward, causing their weapon systems to reset to their uncharged state. On the main Zorthani ship, High Counselor Vexthar couldn't believe what he was seeing. Impossible. These primitives cannot control time itself. increase power to all weapons, crush them with our might. But raw power wasn't enough. The human ships danced through space, using their temporal fields like shields and weapons at the same time. When Zorthani beams hit the fields, the humans redirected the slowed energy back at their attackers. Grace coordinated Neptune Station's defenses, her hands flying over the controls. They're trying to concentrate their fire on Sector 7. Temporal platforms 4 through 6 create a time wall. The defense platforms shot out energy that bent time itself. The Zorthani attacks hit the wall and stopped completely, frozen in time. How are they doing this? A Zorthani commander demanded. No young race should have this power. Ambassador Corell watched from Neptune Station's command center, its silver skin glowing with excitement. Look at them. The mighty Zorthani, being beaten by the very race they called primitive. The battle spread across the space near Neptune. The Zorthani ships were bigger and more powerful, but they couldn't hit what they couldn't catch. Human ships slipped through different speeds of time, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. On the Valiant, Lisa worked with her team to push their advantage. Captain, I'm seeing something interesting. Their ship's crystal structure. It resonates when exposed to temporal fields, if we hit them with the right frequency. Peter understood immediately. We could shake them apart, send the data to all ships, focus temporal fields on these frequencies. The effect was dramatic. When the human ships adjusted their temporal fields, the crystal ships began to vibrate. Small cracks appeared in their beautiful hulls. This is impossible. Vexthar's voice boomed across all channels. We are the Zorthani. We have ruled space for 1,000,000 years. We cannot be defeated by children. Grace's voice was calm as she responded. Maybe it's time for the children to teach you some new tricks. The battle reached its peak when 3 Zorthani ships tried to combine their weapons into one massive beam. It was their standard tactic, overwhelming force to crush all resistance. But humanity had planned for this too. All ships, execute Operation Timestorm, Peter commanded. Every human ship and defense platform activated their temporal fields at full power. The space around the Zorthani fleet became a maze of different time speeds. Parts of their ships were frozen, while others moved super fast. Their combined beams scattered into 1,000 harmless streams of light. Their fleet is in chaos, Grace reported. Crystal structures are failing. They can't coordinate their attacks through the temporal interference. On the main Zorthani ship, systems were failing. The mighty crystal vessels, unchanged for thousands of years, couldn't handle the strain of fighting in twisted time. Fall back. Vexthar finally ordered. Retreat to safe space. The crystal ships turned, their beautiful forms now cracked and dulled. As they fled, they left behind something they hadn't lost in 1,000,000 years, their reputation for invincibility. After the battle, Earth's leaders gathered on Neptune Station. The mood was positive but serious. They had won their first fight, but everyone knew the war wasn't over. The Zorthani will be back, Corell warned. They cannot accept this defeat, but you have done something incredible. You've shown the galaxy they can be beaten. Dr. Bennett nodded. And we've only begun to explore what our temporal technology can do. The Zorthani stopped advancing, stopped thinking in new ways. That's why they couldn't counter our tactics. Already, other races are watching, Corell said. Its dark eyes sparkled. The Nexari have secretly contacted Earth's government. We want to share our technology, combine it with your temporal science, and we're not the only ones. Captain Mills looked out at the stars where the crystal ships had fled. The Zorthani thought they could bully us into submission. Instead, they've started something they never expected, a revolution. Grace checked her tactical displays one last time. The temporal defense fields were strong and ready. Earth was safe for now. They called us primitive because we're young, she said. They forgot that being young also means being able to think in new ways. Lisa smiled as she worked on improving their temporal systems. And the next time they come, we'll have even more surprises waiting. The age of Zorthani dominance is over. They just don't know it yet. As Neptune Station's crew began repairs and preparations, news of the battle spread across the galaxy. Humanity had done more than defend their home. They had given hope to countless races who had lived under Zorthani control for generations. The real war was just beginning. But Earth had shown that the future belonged to those who could imagine new possibilities, not those who clung to ancient power. The time of change had come to the galaxy, and humanity was leading the way. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council looked different now. Where once the Zorthani's crystal thrones had dominated the space, now half the seats stood empty. The defeat at Neptune had changed everything. Susan Clark stood before the remaining council members, her voice steady as she presented Earth's evidence. For 1,000,000 years, the Zorthani have held back technological progress. They didn't protect younger races. They feared them. Holograms filled the air around her, showing thousands of cases where the Zorthani had suppressed new discoveries. Behind her, Captain Peter Mills watched the other council races' reactions. Some looked angry, others afraid, but many showed signs of hope. The time of silence is over, Susan continued. Earth offers its temporal technology to any race that wants to advance, to grow, to reach their full potential. High Counselor Vexthar's crystal form had lost its shine since the battle. This is treason. These humans spread lies to destroy our perfect order. Perfect for whom? Ambassador Corell stepped forward, its silver skin gleaming. The Nexari remember what we were before you guided us. We were exploring quantum science, developing our own temporal theories, until you decided we were learning too much, too fast. More voices joined in. Species after species stood up, sharing their stories of lost knowledge and suppressed discoveries. The council chamber echoed with centuries of hidden truth. Back on the U.S. Valiant, Dr. Lisa Bennett worked with scientists from a dozen alien races. Their lab had become a melting pot of ideas and technologies. Your temporal fields are incredible, said a Nexari scientist, its large eyes studying their latest test results. Combined with our quantum mechanics, we could revolutionize space travel. Lisa nodded excitedly, and the Praxi energy systems could make our temporal generators 10 times more efficient. We've achieved more in a week of working together than the Zorthani allowed in 1,000 years. Her comm unit buzzed. It was Commander Alan Wright. Dr. Bennett, we're picking up strange readings from Zorthani space. They're trying something big. On Neptune Station's command deck, Grace Mitchell analyzed the data with growing concern. They're generating temporal distortions of their own. Crude ones, but powerful. They're desperate, Alan said, watching the readings. They're trying to copy our technology, but they don't understand the principles behind it. Can they make it work? Grace asked. Not safely. These readings show their temporal fields are unstable. If they try to use them in battle, he didn't need to finish the thought. Everyone knew what unstable temporal fields could do to spacetime itself. The station's AI announced an incoming transmission. High Counselor Vexthar's image appeared on the main screen, his crystal form now shot through with dark cracks. You think you've won, humans. You think your clever tricks and stolen knowledge make you strong. We are the Zorthani. We ruled space before your species learned to make fire. Peter Mills stepped into view of the transmission. The galaxy is changing, High Counselor. Join us in building something new, or stand aside. Never. Vexthar's form pulsed with angry colors. We have mastered your temporal science. Our fleet now carries weapons that can erase your whole species from time itself. The transmission cut off. Moments later, alarms blared across every human and allied ship. Multiple temporal signatures detected. Grace reported. The Zorthani fleet is moving. They're ships. They're covered in temporal generation devices. But the fields they're producing are chaotic, dangerous. Susan Clark, who had rushed back from the council meeting, looked at the tactical display with horror. They'll tear reality apart if they try to use those devices in combat. They don't care, Corell said softly. They would rather destroy everything than admit their time is over. Peter's voice came through the comm system. All ships, prepare for combat, but our priority has changed. We need to stop those unstable temporal devices before they rupture spacetime. Lisa spoke up from her lab. Captain, I think I know how. The necessary scientists, and I have been working on a temporal nullification field. It's not perfected yet, but can it shut down their devices safely? If we can get close enough, yes. But their conventional weapons are still powerful. Getting within range will be dangerous. Peter's response was immediate. Better to risk our ships than let them tear apart spacetime. Commander Wright, coordinate with all Allied vessels. We need to form a blockade. Already on it, Ellen replied. The necessary fleet is moving to support us. 3 other council races are sending ships too. Grace studied the tactical display, already planning defense patterns. The Zorthani fleet will reach our position in 2 hours. Their temporal fields are growing more unstable by the minute. Then we have 2 hours to save them from themselves, Peter said, and maybe save this entire sector of space while we're at it. As the combined fleet of Earth and its new allies moved into position, Lisa worked frantically with her team to refine the nullification field. The Zorthani had ruled through fear for 1,000,000 years. Now, their fear of losing control might destroy everything they had claimed to protect. The final battle was coming. But this time, it wasn't just about winning or losing. It was about preventing a disaster that could unravel the very fabric of space and time. Humanity had shown the galaxy a better way forward. Now they had to stop those who would rather destroy it all than accept change. Krill watched the preparations from Neptune Station's command deck. You humans never cease to amaze me, it said. Even now, facing enemies who want to destroy you, you try to save them from their own mistakes. That's what makes us different from the Zorthani, Susan replied. They think strength means never changing. We know it means having the wisdom to change when we must, and the courage to help others do the same. The stars seemed to shimmer as temporal distortions spread through space. Earth's fleet, once considered primitive, now stood as the last line of defense against chaos. The next few hours would determine not just the future of humanity, but the fate of time itself. The combined fleet of Earth and its allies faced the approaching Zorthani armada near the galactic core. Streams of unstable temporal energy twisted through space, making the stars look like they were dancing. On the U.S. Valiant's bridge, Captain Peter Mills watched the tactical display with growing concern. The Zorthani ship's crystal surfaces pulsed with dangerous temporal power. Status report, he ordered. Their temporal fields are completely unstable, Dr. Lisa Bennett replied from her station. The energy readings are off the charts. If those fields collapse, she didn't need to finish. Everyone knew it would tear a hole in spacetime itself. Lieutenant Grace Mitchell's voice came through from Neptune Station. All Allied ships are in position. The necessary fleet is standing by. 3 more council races have joined us. The Zorthani aren't slowing down, Commander Alan Wright reported. They're charging straight for our lines. High Counselor Vexthar's transmission cut through all channels. His crystal form was almost black now, crossed with glowing red cracks. This is your last chance, humans. Surrender to our rule, or we will unmake time itself. Peter stood from his command chair. You're endangering everyone, including your own people. Stand down, and we can help you stabilize those temporal fields. Help. From primitives. We would rather destroy the galaxy than live in a universe where lesser races rule. The transmission ended. The Zorthani fleet accelerated, their unstable temporal fields warping space around them. In her lab on the Valiant, Lisa worked frantically with her team of human and alien scientists. Nexuri quantum computers filled the room with soft blue light. The nullification field is ready, she announced. But we need to get it within 10,000 kilometers of their ships. Any further, and it won't be strong enough. That's suicide range, Alan said. Their conventional weapons would tear us apart before we got that close. Susan Clark, who had been quietly watching the tactical displays, stepped forward. "Maybe we don't need to get close. Ambassador Corell, you said the Nexari were working on quantum tunneling before the Zorthani stopped you." Corell's silver skin rippled with excitement. "Yes, and combined with your temporal fields. Dr. Bennett, could we create a tunnel through folded time?" Lisa's eyes widened. "A temporal bridge. We could project the nullification field through it, bypass their defenses completely." "How long do you need?" Peter asked. 20 minutes to set up the bridge. But someone will have to pilot a ship through it to deliver the nullification field generator. The tunnel will only stay open for seconds." "I'll do it," Grace said over the comm. "I'm the best pilot we have." Peter nodded. "Get to the Valiant. We'll hold off the Zorthani while the science team prepares the temporal bridge." The next 15 minutes were chaos. The Zorthani fleet attacked with everything they had, their unstable temporal fields making their weapons even more dangerous. Space itself seemed to crack where their energy beams hit. Earth's fleet and their allies fought back, using coordinated temporal tactics. They created walls of slowed time to catch enemy fire, used time bubbles to age incoming missiles until they fell apart, and synchronized their attacks through different time streams. But the Zorthani's raw power was overwhelming. 3 Allied ships were destroyed. A Nexari cruiser barely escaped as its hull began to crack. The temporal distortions grew stronger, threatening to tear apart the fabric of reality. 5 more minutes, Lisa called out. "The temporal bridge is almost ready." "We might not have 5 minutes," Alan warned. "Their temporal fields are reaching critical levels. If they collapse, keep them busy." Grace had arrived and was prepping a small, fast ship equipped with the nullification device. "I just need one clean shot." The Zorthani pressed their attack. High Counselor Vexthar's flagship led the charge, its crystal surface now a nightmare of twisted time and space. "You cannot stop the inevitable." His voice boomed. "We are eternal. We are supreme. We err." "Ready," Lisa shouted. Temporal bridge activating now. Space twisted in a new way. A tunnel of pure quantum energy opened up, wrapped in layers of controlled time. "Go," Peter ordered. Grace's ship shot forward into the tunnel. Through the quantum bridge, she could see space in ways no human ever had before. Past and future seemed to flow together. She emerged right in the heart of the Zorthani fleet. Her fingers flew over the controls, activating the nullification field at point-blank range. The effect was immediate. A wave of calming energy spread out, smoothing the chaotic temporal distortions. The Zorthani's crude temporal generators began to shut down. "No." Vexthar's cry echoed through space. "What have you done?" "Saved you from yourselves," Grace replied as her ship raced back through the closing tunnel. The Zorthani fleet hung in space, their temporal weapons dead, their crystal ships dulled and cracked. For the first time in a million years, they were just another race among many. 1 week later, the new Galactic Council met. The Great Hall had been redesigned. Instead of the Zorthani's towering crystal thrones, all seats were equal. "The age of suppression is over," Susan Clark announced to the assembled representatives. "Earth proposes a new covenant, all races free to develop, to learn, to grow. We will face the future together, as equals." The remaining Zorthani representatives, younger, more progressive members who had replaced Vexthar and his hardliners, sat quietly in their new seats. Their once bright crystal forms were simpler now, but somehow more beautiful in their humility. "We accept these terms," their new speaker said. Perhaps it is time we learned from others, instead of only ruling them." Ambassador Curl stood. "The Nexari support this new covenant. Already, our joint research with Earth has produced innovations we never dreamed possible." One by one, other races stood to pledge their support. Each had stories of renewed hope, of ancient knowledge being rediscovered, of new innovations emerging now that the Zorthani's restrictions were gone. On the Valiant, orbiting Earth, Peter watched the council session with his crew. Hard to believe it's only been a month since first contact, he said. Time is relative, Lisa replied with a smile, especially now that we understand it better. The Nexari quantum scientists have some fascinating theories about where we might go next. Speaking of next, Grace said, wait until they see the new ships we're building. Temporal drives, quantum sensors, and some surprises even the Zorthani never imagined. Elen looked out at the stars. They thought being young made us weak. They never understood that youth means having the courage to imagine new possibilities, and the wisdom to use them wisely. Susan added from her council seat, her voice coming through the comm. The galaxy is changing, and this time, we all change together. The stars seemed brighter somehow, as if the future itself was shining with new potential. Humanity had not only survived its trial by fire, it had helped forge a new age for all species. The time of fear and suppression was over. The age of discovery was just beginning.